Now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Rabbi Jacobson, who really needs no introduction. But let me just tell you something. I was in a Pesach program with him this year, many years for that matter. He was scheduled to speak for 1 hour. Now, 1 hour on a Pesach program means 45 minutes. Okay? He packed into the room, I think Velishum Guzma, probably 500 to 700 people. Spoke for 1 hour and 45 minutes, and nobody moved. And we missed Mincha. And we missed my Mincha. Nobody moved. That shows you what an inspiring, prolific, dynamic, exciting orator that he is. And Baruch Hashem, we're blessed to have him with us tonight in Bet Hashem at Bias Goel Tzedek. It's truly my privilege to present to you Rabbi Jacobson Shlita.
Thank you, thank you.
It wasn't a hesitation. I did a low.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Abish, and I want to also thank Rabbi Abish and Flori Mendel for opening their home, their extended home, their oil, their tent to all of us on this great evening of Yud Tes Kislev. Good evening and welcome, good Yom Tif. Welcome to all of you, Bruchim Aboyim. Say in the Ezras Anoshim and say in the Ezras Noshim. Welcome to all. We're thrilled to have you. L'chaim, 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 l'chaim v'levracha, l'chaim tovim v'lashalom, l'chaim, 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 l'chaim. The Gemara in Masechta Shabbos begins the sugya of Hanukkah, or actually doesn't begin, but in the middle of the sugya of Hanukkah. Tav Chafala from Ed Beis says, Toner Rabbanon, my Hanukkah. What is Hanukkah? Since we're a few days before Hanukkah, so I'm going to paraphrase Chazal and say, my Yud Tes Kislev. My Yud Tes Kislev. We gathered here this evening in a night of rain and snow and cold on the outside, but warmth on the inside. And we ask, Ma Yud Tes Kislev. Historically, Yud Tes Kislev is the yahrzeit, the Yom HaHilula of the great Maggid of Mezrich, Reb Doiv Ber, Zchus HaYagan Aleinu, who was the Talmud, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement. The Maggid passed away on Yud Tes Kislev, Tov Kuf Lamed Gimel, which would be 1772. And a few decades later, in 1798, Tov Kuf Nun Tes, it became the Chag HaGeula of his student, of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the Baal HaTanya V'Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe, who was liberated from Tsarist imprisonment for his teachings of Chassidus, on this day of Yud Tes Kislev, and became known as the Rosh Hashanah LeChassidus. That's historically. Spiritually, it's seen as the day that celebrates what Chassidus is. What Chassidus is. So my Yud Tes Kislev is really a question of my Chassidus. What is Chassidus? What is Chassidus? There's many, many ways to answer the question. And certainly can't be exhausted in one talk or even one Farbrengen or even one full night of Yud Tes Kislev. But I want to address what I think is one aspect of it. At least one aspect, my Yud Tes Kislev, my Chassidus. And since it's Parshas Vayeshev, so we'll address it and highlight it through a moment in Parshas Vayeshev. Everybody sitting here knows the famous, astonishing statement in Gemara, in Masechta Soita, Daf Lamed Vav. The Gemara there tells the story when it says about Yosef, Vayavai habaysa lasas malachta. Yosef comes home to the house of Potiphar to do his work, and nobody is home. Vatispeseyu bevigdoi leimer shichva imi. The wife of Potiphar, who took a liking to Yosef, to put it mildly, says to Yosef, this is the opportunity. Shichva imi, lay with me. So the Gemara says in Soita, Rav or Shmuel. There's an argument between Rav and Shmuel. One opinion is Malachtai Mamish. He came to do his work. The other opinion is Lasois Tzrachav Imai. That actually Yosef succumbed to the incessant requests and demands of the wife of Potiphar. He was about to surrender to her wishes. After all, the Gemara says in Masechta Yuma Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis that the wife of Potiphar did not stop. Every single day she dressed up in a different uniform in order to entice Yosef. She threatened him that if he will not obey her requests, she will blind him. She will turn him in lame. She will imprison him. She'll kill him. Ze geht nicht mit schlechten. If it doesn't go negatively, she promised him the world and beyond, just to get Yosef to do with her, to experience with her what she wanted, an immoral relations. So one opinion in Gemara is that finally, Vayavei Abayis Lasas Malachta, Yosef is 17 years old. He has no father, no mother, no siblings, no family, no community, no environment. He's alone in the world. We're in Egypt, Ervas Haaretz, where moral depravity was the norm. Shtufei Zima, these types of experiences was the normal, so to speak, civilized way of living. In a situation literally of pikuach nefesh, where she threatened him with all types of torture, savage suffering and death, before Matan Torah. So one opinion says, Lasas Rachav, at this moment, Yosef finally surrendered to the wife of Potiphar. And yet, the last moment, what happened? Zog the Gemara, Sheniris loid muzdi yoiknoi shalaviv bachaloi. Suddenly he saw the visage, the image of his father in the window. And as a result of seeing the image of his father in the window, Yosef at the last moment abstains. The Gemara in Soita says what Yaakov told him in the image. Rashi just brings the fact that he saw the image. In Zohar and Medrashim, and also says he saw the image and abstained. And what happened? Vayazov bigdoi biyada vayonas vayetze achutz. He leaves his cloak in her hand because she's grabbing on to his beged, and he flees and goes outside. And we all know the continuation of the story. She accuses him of trying to violate her. Her husband believes her, at least makes believe he believes her. Probably didn't believe her, and he imprisons Yosef, who remains a prisoner for 12 years. What is the meaning of the fact that the Muzdi Yoiknoi Shal Yaakov Niraloi Bachaloi? What does it mean that suddenly Yosef saw the image of his father? He always knew what his father looked like. He spent 17 years with his father. Eila told us Yaakov Yosef. They learned together, they spoke together, he educated him, he molded him, he gave him his Ksainas Pasam, he had a special love to him, as the Chumash describes earlier in the Parsha. He always knew what Yaakov looks like. And yet, according to this opinion in Saita Lamed Vav, he morally succumbed at that moment. He couldn't take the pressure anymore. What happened suddenly? He saw a picture of Yaakov. He saw a video of Yaakov. He got a text message from Yaakov. He got a WhatsApp from Yaakov. I'm not sure they had it then in Egypt for whatever reason. What is this meaning that he suddenly saw the image of Yaakov? Was this a miracle? Was it natural? And what is it, number two, that as a result of seeing the visage of Yaakov, he suddenly had the courage to say no, vayonos vayetze achutza, and he flees to a point of real self-sacrifice. What was it about the picture of Yaakov? He knew what Yaakov looked like before. And yet there was something about the Muzdi Yoikno Shal Yaakov. And one of the possible explanations in this my dear friends, is connected to one of those rare words that's employed in this story, in Parshas Vayeshev. And it's a word that's found in Parshas Vayeshev twice. It's a fascinating word. It's not used that frequently in Tanakh. And therefore, when it is used, it requires our attention. And the word that's used is Vayemoin. Yosef refused. As Potiphar's wife seeks his intimate company, Vayemoin, he refuses. She speaks to him each day, but he doesn't listen to her. The Vayemoin has, as you know, a rare musical note that is found only 4 times in all of Chumash. And that's the Shalshelis. It's found once in Vayera, once in Chayesara, the 3rd time here in Vayeshev, and the 4th and last time in Parshas Tzav on Vayishchat. Vayemoin. And he refuses. Why the Shalshelis? Why the Shalshelis note on Vayemoin? The word Vayemoin is used in Parshas Vayeshev once before. You remember where? Not on Yosef, on somebody else. Yaakov Avinu. When the Shvatim, the brothers, take Yosef's cloak, also his cloak, and they dip it in the blood of a goat, and they bring it to Yaakov and they ask him, recognize, Haksainas binchi imloi, is this the tunic of your son or it's not? What does Yaakov say? He says, Taraf Yosef. My son was devoured. Chayara achalasu, a wild beast devoured him. Rashi says it didn't only mean literally a wild beast, but rather there was a Ruach HaKodesh, there was a prophecy that he will be threatened by the wild beast of immorality, of inappropriate intimacy. And Yaakov tears his garments and he mourns for his son. And the Torah says all of his sons and all of his daughters stood up to comfort him. But what's the word afterwards? Vayemoin lehisnach. Vayemoin. He refuses to be comforted. He says, I will never be comforted, ever. Till my grave. Ered el bni yavil sha'oila. I will never be comforted. Vayemoin lehisnach. So there's a Vayemoin in Shlishi of Vayeshev. And then there's the second Vayemoin in Chamishi of Vayeshev, in Shishi of Vayeshev, when Yosef refuses. What's the Vayemoin of Yaakov Avinu, Vayemoin lehisnach? What does it mean, Vayemoin lehisnach? So Chazal say, everybody knows, Chazaka al hameis sheyishtakach min halev. Rebbeinu Shalom created the psychology of the human race, that in order for us to be able to move on after loss, Rachmana litzlan, we have the ability to forget. Forget doesn't mean you forget, really, literally, but forget means the ability to be able to see a future ahead of you despite the grief and the loss that we encounter in life at one point or another. That's true about a mace, somebody who actually passes on. Al-Hachai, on somebody who's living, you can't forget. Yosef HaTzadik was not dead, he was alive. And therefore Yaakov could not be comforted, he could not move on. He felt that he could not move on because the real reason was Yosef was alive. Every story in Chumash operates on 2 levels. The literal, Pshuta Shal Mikra, the Gemara says in Shabbos, Ein Mikra Yotze Midei Pshuta. Every pasuk has a literal interpretation. But every story, every halacha, every mitzvah also has a metaphysical interpretation, a spiritual, emotional, psychological interpretation. And indeed, Torah's Hanister, Pnimiyus HaTorah, the literature of Kabbalah and Chassidus, one of its primary functions is to decode the deeper, timeless, relevant message and personal story in each of the narratives of Chamisha Chumsha Torah, Tanakh, Medrash, Gemara, etc., and all of its mitzvahs. And it's true with this story too. Let's understand the meaning of Yaakov refusing to be comforted. Vayakumu kol banav v'chol bnoisav l'nachamai. All of his sons and all of his daughters get up to comfort him. It doesn't help. For the first time, we discover that Yaakov has daughters. We never knew he has daughters. All of his daughters. Whoever heard that he has daughters? We knew that he had one daughter, Dinah. And it was quite a complicated story with her in Parshas Vayishlach. Suddenly we learn Yaakov has daughters. And Rashi brings the Machlokes, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemya. Where did these daughters come from? Rabbi Yehuda says Yaakov had a bunch of girls. He had 12 boys, and Baruch Hashem, he had 12 girls. They all had found their match, pun intended. Rabbi Nechemya argues it wasn't his daughters, it was his daughters-in-law. Wie kommt suddenly all of his daughters here? So the Mefarshim brings, you have in the Erachaim, you have many Mefarshim. This was the Nechama. The Nechama was that all of his sons and all of his daughters suddenly showed up on Shabbos. They all showed up to the Hanukkah party. Usually they never showed up. This one was busy. You know the Maisa, yeah. They say on Alta Maisa there was once a couple. So the father living in the Bronx, you know, in the good old days, right, in the 60s, living in the Bronx, he calls up his son, who's a big doctor in Los Angeles, and he says, Sammy, I decided to give your mother a divorce. Son says, Dad, you went crazy? You guys have been married for 56 years. We have had the most beautiful youth. Why would you divorce? He says, how long can a man suffer? Vifel is ashir. Vifel is ashir. It's true. The Gemara says, there was once a woman came to a Rav and she said she wants a get. So the Rav said, crazy. The Gemara says at the end of Ksuvas, Kala Megarish Ishtar Rishoina, Mizbeach Mardel of Demayas. Somebody divorces her, so the Mizbeach starts crying. She says, did I secure ich veins? All the Mizbeach vein in Abyssal. 30 years I have been weeping. Let the Mizbeach cry a little bit. So Sammy says, Tati, Danny, why would you do this? He says, listen, it's been 56 years of Gehenna, of purgatory. Enough is enough. I want to at least die in peace. Living in peace, I wasn't Zoich. Let me die in peace. I don't want to be with her. He says, I can't believe this. I am shattered. I am horrified. This doesn't make sense. He hangs up. He calls up his sister, who's a prominent nurse living in San Francisco. And he says, the old man went crazy. He just called me and says he's divorcing mom. She said, I'll knock some seichel into his head. You know, daughters have a magic with their father. She hangs up on her brother. She calls up her father. She says, I don't understand. You went crazy? What happened to you? A dibuk went into you? What's going on? He says, listen, I've had a miserable life. I covered it over simply for the sake of the kids. You're both out of the house. You both have good jobs. You're living in California, the dream of every Jew. We're good to go. I'm divorcing her, so you won't have Thanksgiving dinner. It's all right. She says, Daddy, you went crazy. On my dead body, you're divorcing mommy. He says, listen, I don't have enough patience. I can't talk about this anymore. It's done. She says, listen, did you call the lawyers? He says, I'm about to call the lawyers very soon. She says, promise me I'm going to take a red-eye flight. I'm going to come in with my brother. We're going to fly in. We're going to be at your doorstep tomorrow, 9 o'clock in the morning. Promise me you don't make a telephone call till we're there. He says, I promise you. Hangs up. Turns to his wife and he says, honey, I have great news. Both kids are coming for Pesach and they're paying for their own ticket. So usually the kids don't come. Everybody is busy with their own thing. Suddenly, suddenly the whole mishpacha is there. You know why? Lenachamai. They wanted to comfort him. What was the comfort? Look how beautiful your mishpacha is. Look at the sons. Look at the daughters. So there's one boy who's lost. Tarif Yosef. But how can you mourn for the rest of your life? Look what a splendid, beautiful, tremendous mishpacha, tremendous family you have. Just watching the presence of the sons and the daughters. But let's take it a step deeper and more psychologically relevant, especially in today's day. What's Yosef's story? Yosef is thrown into a pit and then he's sold as a slave. Isn't that the story of many children? Aren't there many children who end up in the abyss? Literally, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. And don't they get sold into slavery? Don't they surrender themselves to slavery? Don't they lose control over themselves like a slave and they end up in the abyss of addiction? I don't mean Rabbi Vigler's types of addiction. I mean other forms of addiction. Addiction, self-destructive behavior, dysfunctional behavior, depression, melancholy, destructive substances. They're literally in a pit, if not in a physical pit, in an emotional pit. And it's a pit that has snakes and scorpions all over the place. And even when they get out of the pit, they're slaves. They don't believe in themselves. They don't have control over themselves. They're in pain. They're in agony. They're avodim. They're slaves. And they have a father who mourns for them. And suddenly all the sons and the daughters show up at the table, Hanukkah, or Shabbos, or Yom Tif, or Pesach, and they say, Tata, this is not Nachas. You have 11 sons. Look at them. This one is a Rosh Yeshiva. This one is a Rosh Koilo. This one has been in the mirror for already 13 years and he's not planning to leave because you're supporting him. This one is in Slabodka. This one is in Chevron. This one is already 9 years in Brisk. This one is in Ponovich. This one founded Hatzola in Flatbush. This one is a Veltz Asken. This one is a Gevirin, a Balstoka, a Chesed, you don't imagine. This one finished Shas already 7 times. Daf Yomi 7 times. And this one knows the whole Mishnah Brura and Chaye Yodam backwards and forwards. And look at your daughters. Look at your daughters-in-law. She runs a seminary. She's the Rebbitzin of the city. She's the Rebbitzin of the continent. She's a Gewaldika role model. Unbelievable for the Hasda. Look what's going on. You have one son who ended up in the abyss. Okay. Okay, who doesn't? Every family has its black sheep. Tarif Yosef. He's a slave. One kid didn't live up to your expectations, to your potentials. One Yosef was left with snakes and he became a slave. But how can you mourn for the rest of your life? One kid is out of the house. Forget. Time to forget. Says the Torah 2 words. Yaakov refused to be comforted. You know why? Because you're comforted on a mace, not on a chai. Yaakov looked at them and he said, you don't understand. Mein Yosef is nish kein mace. Mein Yosef is a chai. Yaakov refuses to accept the fact that Yosef is spiritually dead, is emotionally dead. My Yosef is alive and therefore he never is ready to be comforted and say, move on, forget about Yosef. I can't move on. I love Yosef. I believe in Yosef. I know Yosef. I know Yosef. He's not dead. He's not spiritually dead. True, I have 11 beautiful sons. I have a Yehuda, mit a Levi, mit a Yisachar, mit a Reuven. True, I have 12 gewaldige daughters. Unbelievable, and I'm proud of them. But for a moment to think that Yosef is a lost case, Yosef is my lost child, Vayemoin, he refuses. He refuses and he never gives up on his son Yosef. Now look what happens. What's the result of this? Yosef is a slave. And Yosef is suffering terribly from Potiphar's wife, who wants to violate him morally and emotionally, and wants him to violate her morally and emotionally. And she doesn't stop. Yoim, she doesn't stop. And one day Yosef comes home. He's 17-year-old boy. Ervas Haaretz, no support system. He's ready to surrender his neshama. And the last moment, you know what happens? Suddenly he sees the image of Yaakov. What does he see? Suddenly he sees a hotatata. He sees Yaakov's image, the man who never stopped believing in him. The man about whom the Torah says, Vayimo'ein lihisnachem, he refused to move on and to be comforted, thinking that Yosef is dead. He refused to give up on Yosef. And you know what that does? It causes a second Vayimo'ein. Yosef's Vayimo'ein is a result of Yaakov's Vayimo'ein. The result of Yaakov refusing to give up on Yosef. He empowers Yosef to refuse to give up on himself. Because he has a father who never stops believing in his greatness, in his depth, in his holiness, in his purity, in his goodness, in his sanctity, and in his inherent wholesomeness, despite the trials and tribulations, despite the terrible nisyonis, despite the horrific experiences. The father says, Vayimo'ein. This is what empowers the child to be able to declare Vayimo'ein. That's why there's a shalshelas. You know why there's a shalshelas on Vayimo'ein? What does shalshelas mean? There's a chain. Yaakov Avinu made sure never to sever the link, never to make Yosef feel he got no father, he got no mother, he got no family, he has no people who really believe in him. In Yaakov's eyes, Yosef's purity and goodness was glowing in its full, pristine splendor, despite the fact that Torah, despite the fact that he had to face a chayira, despite the fact that Malachta, and therefore in the ultimate moment of truth, he saw that image of a man who cared and believed in him. Not only who loved him and cried for him, that's not enough, who believed in him genuinely. And this empowered him to be able to say Vayimo'ein, to be able to refuse. That's the Dmus Diyoikna Shal Yaakov. Niraloi B'chaloin, the Shalshelas was retained. In many ways, I think, this gives one answer of many, to the question, my Siddhis, and therefore my Yud Tes Kislev. Essentially, it can be summarized in one word, Vayimo'ein. Vayimo'ein comes from the word, what's the etymology of the word? Mi'un, which is associated with which word? Imun. You know what imun is? Emunah. Imun. Imun atzmi. Trust. Imun. Right? Trust, confidence, faith. Vayimo'ein liyisnachem. Yaakov refused to be comforted because he had imun. Because he trusted Yosef. He understood Yosef's essence. He understood his atzmius. He understood that superficially the brothers can dismiss him as somebody who was the rotten apple in the family, but he understood Yosef. Yisroel ohaves Yosef mikol bonav. He got him. He appreciated him. The Vayimo'ein of Yaakov, the trust, the emunah in Yosef, is what allowed Yosef to believe in himself. Vayimo'ein. He could say Vayimo'ein to Eishes Peitifar. My Chassidus, the Heilige Baditchev Rav, the Kedushas Levi, Schusa Yogan Aleinu, Reb Levitzak of Baditchev, writes, Haflu de Kevort, Kedushas Levi Parshas Noach. Rashi says, Noach walked into the Teva, Mipnei Mei HaMabul, because of the waters of the flood. What does Rashi bring from the Medrash? Af Noach Miktane Amona Hoya. Noach also was from those who had little emunah. Little emunah. Flekte Baditchev Rav, really? Noach was Ktane Amona? 120 years he's building a teva. The whole world is mocking him. The whole world thinks the guy Mamish is... I'm not going to share with you what CNN had to say about him. 120 years at Baita Teva. Why? Because the Rebbeinu Shalom said, build a Teva. That's called Ktane Amona. You ever tried building a Teva for 120 years? Yourself? With nobody's help, nobody's assist, but he thought you're completely off your rocket. You're mad, you're deranged, you're insane. Why? Because he believed in God. That's called Ktane Amona. Besides, did he even need Emunah? Hashem spoke to him. He didn't even need Emunah. Do you need faith that I'm sitting here holding a mic, or that there's a bottle of seltzer in front of me, or that the guy in front of you is sleeping? You don't need faith. You see it. You hear it. You don't need Emunah. Schlaf gesundheit, so get me nicht done. It's good he didn't wake up. So, you need Emunah. You need Emunah. You need Emunah. It reminds me, I gave a Shia Tanya in Borough Park for 6 years. 6 years we learned Likutei Amorim. It took us 6 years to finish 53 chapters. So there was a man who always sat against me, mamash, for years. There were 2 comfortable chairs in the room. I had a comfortable chair and he had. And right when I started, he would fall asleep. But mamash, Akviyas Tmidim Kisidram, it was as reliable as the sun coming up in the morning, more reliable, because even on a cloudy day, he fell asleep. And each time he used to come to me after the shiur, and he would say, today, you were gewaldig. You were unbelievable. So I was always, I tried to be gracious, and I said, thank you. But once, my patience platzed, and I said, Rabbi Yid, can I be honest with you? You've been sleeping here for 6 years. And you sleep b'kol ram, Baruch Hashem. Everybody can hear it. Tkiya, shvarim, trua, tkiya, outs. You ganuchi, ganach, yilula, yalul, the works, as the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah. So why do you always tell me it's a gevaldik shiur? He says, no, you misunderstood. I don't say it's a gevaldik, I say it's gevaldik. Pshat is my dreams during your shiur. I sleep, and the dreams that I have are always brilliant and gevaldik. So you're doing something right, because I never have such a good sleep and such a good dream like by you. I said, okay, maybe maybe you have been the greatest student of the shiur. We can't wissen. I'll call upon him. 120 years schlaft nicht. Building, this is called Emunah. He doesn't even need Emunah. Hashem speaks to him. What's pshat? So the Helike Baditshever says, beautiful, deep inside, but I want to say one word. He says, K'tanei Amona doesn't mean he had little faith in the Ribbono Shel Olam. K'tanei Amona means, you know what it means? He had little emunah in himself. He had little emunah in himself. Chazal say, Tzadik goyzer v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu goyzer v'tzadik mevatel. Noach was told, I'm going to bring a flood and destroy the world. And all Noach said was, okay, boss. Hashem said, I'm wiping everybody out. Kimola haaretz chamas, or actually Hamas. In today's reading. And all Noach would say is, okay, boss. Compare it to Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu in Parshas Ki Sisa the same thing. I'm going to wipe out the Jewish people. We'll start over with you. What does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Not on my dead body. Va'atoim tisachatosam v'mayin mecheni no misifrecha asher kasofta. Delete me from the Sefer Torah if you won't forgive them. It won't happen. Mecheni, says the Arizal. Mecheni is oisius mei noyach. Mei noyach. Because Moshe was a nitzut, a spark of Noach. So he was mesaken what Noach did not do. And indeed, God says, Salachti kidvarech, I forgive him. Noach didn't believe in the human potential to affect reality, to change reality, to speak to Hashem and to change reality, even to change Gzeirah. He didn't believe in the koyach hatfilah. He didn't believe in the power of a human soul. He didn't believe in the power of prayer. K'tanei amone, he didn't really believe in himself, in his own koyach. Vayimahin. Often when one looks in the mirror, physically or more importantly, psychologically, we find ourselves or our loved ones in a certain abyss. Sometimes enslaved to forces that we feel we don't have control over. And sometimes these forces get the better of us. People today are so stressed out simply to pay tuition for your kids, to give them a Jewish education, not to send them to public school, to cover your mortgage on East 9th Street, to be able to pay your rent, to be able to get through the month. Never mind the stresses of Shalom Bayis and educating your children. If you come out half sane, is Shayna Nes Mamish Min HaShamayim. And often you look at yourself, you feel like you're drowning, you're devoured, or you're a slave. A slave to so many forces internally or externally, mebayis mebachutz. And if this was true today, how much more so was it true 300 years ago when the light of the Baal Shem Tov came to the world? The Baal Shem Tov was born in 1698 in the depths of the thick darkness of a Golus after the Gzeres Tachvetat 1648-49, after the debacle of Shapsi Tzvi, with tremendous poverty and a future sense of hopelessness. And the psura that Teres HaChassidus brought to the world was Vayimo'ein lehisnache. Vayimo'ein lehisnache means the greatest crime, said Reb Aaron Haggadah, Reb Aaron Karliner, was one of the great Talmidim of the Maggid of Mizrich. The greatest tragedy, he says, is when the prince forgets that he's the son of a king and thinks that he's just a lost cat or a lost dog who has to roam in the garbage to find what it needs. The greatest tragedy is when you stop seeing the Demuz Diyoiknoi Shel Yaakov Aviv Nirei B'Chaloin. Chassidus came to a Jew and said, you have to realize who you are and what your pnimius is. Within you, you have a neshama, which is a chelik eloikam mimal mamash, a piece of Hashem b'chvoide b'yatzmei, a piece of infinity, a fragment of the Creator itself, and therefore you have within you a power of infinity, a power of self-mastery, a power of rejuvenation, a perspective, a koyach pnimis. It's not just you have it in you. That is who you are. It's not pshat you have within you a soul. You are a soul that contains within it a body, that contains within it other, but that's who you are. It allowed the Jew to be able to find himself in the house of Potiphar's wife, and in the midst of all of it to be able to look out the window and see your father, your mother, who will never stop believing in you, Vayimoin le'isnachim, and therefore empowers you to be able to say Vayimoin to all those forces that try to derail you from your true identity, from your true self. There's a word I once saw in a Siddhis sefer, I think Ach Pri Tvua. Taitches, what's pshat vatispeseyu bevigdoi. She grabbed him by his beged. So literally it means that's what she did. Vatispeseyu bevigdoi. She grabbed him bevigdoi. Taitches azoi. It says in Medrash Rabbim, Parshas told us, Yaakov Avinu walks in with Esav's clothes, and what does Yitzchak do? Vayorach esreyach b'godov. He smells the aroma of Yaakov's clothes. So what does it say in Medrash? Al tikre b'godov, elo boigdov. Not the b'godim. In Sefer Torah there's no vowels, there's no nekudis. So when it says b'godov, you could pronounce it as boigdov. He smelled the aroma of boigdov, his traitors. The traitors of Klal Yisroel. And the Medrash goes on to explain what that means. Yosef Meshisa, Yaakov Meshtzorius. Agan Samaisa Medrash Hava Parshas told us a fascinating union in and of itself. Reach Boigdov. Who are the traitors of Bnei of Klal Yisroel? Vatishpeseyu bevigdoi. She grabbed him by his bigdoi, by his begida. How do you say in Hebrew today a traitor? Boged, right? Boged. In fact, the word beged comes from the word boged. Why? Because the greatest traitor in life are your clothes, right? You all know. You could be a multimillionaire. When I look at your clothes, I think you're mamash a kaptzen who collects nadavas. You could be mamash an adaman. You don't have challah for Shabbos. I look at your clothes. This mamash the gvir von shtetl, right? Clothes, by definition, betray the truth. People, in fact, invest a lot of time, resources, and energy to wear certain types of clothes in order to give off a certain image. Oy va'avoy, if your entire image is created by your clothes because you really believe that your personality doesn't got anything substantial, so therefore you need your clothes to tell your story. That's a tragedy in and of itself, but that's the concept of a beged. And most of Sefer Bereshis revolves the drama of Begodim, in fact, if you'll take a look. Parshas Bereshis with the Kosnesar, the Eitz Hadas, they're naked and he dresses them. And then Noach, you have the Begodim with shame. And then, of course, you have Begodim after Begodim. Yaakov gets dressed up in Big Day Esav, so Yitzchak thinks he's Esav, again a betrayal. And Tamar gets dressed up as a Zaina, so Yehuda doesn't realize it's Tamar. And Leah gets dressed up like Rachel, so Yaakov thinks it's Ach. So Lebedik and Freilich. And then they put the ksainis in blood, so Yaakov thinks that Yosef was killed when only his tunic was killed. The whole Sefer Bereshis, and then finally, Eishes Peitifar, Vatispeseyu Bevigdoi. But you know what Yosef's courage is? Vayonos, Vayetze Achutzel, sein Underbeged. He has the courage to be raw, to be real, to be naked, to be authentic. Vatispeseyu Bevigdoi from the word Begida, betrayals. And this is what Chassidus explains. Vatispeseyu Bevigdoi. You know how the wife of Peitifar B'chol Dor V'dor grabs people? You know what it says to them? It comes into you and says, "Du bist a chabal aveira. You're a boygid. You're such a lowlife. You're such a lowlife. You know who you are. What are you going to lie to the world? You come to Shachris every day, 7:15, and then you stay for Daf Yomi. We know who you are. We know who you are. You think God doesn't know who you are? You could fool your rabbi. You could fool your Rosh Hashiva. You could fool maybe your shviger for a few days. Can't fool your wife for too long, but you could try. We know who you are, but tispeseyu bevigdoi. You're a boygid, you're a traitor. So shichvaimi. If you're anyway a spiritual loser, at least enjoy it. At least enjoy it. Shichvaimi. Vayonos vayetze achutza. I'm not a boygid. Stop saying I'm a boygid. Did I make mistakes? I made mistakes. Did I sin? Oh yes. I'm a boygid? No. But this is where most people get fachapt. That message that tells you how bad you are, how evil you are, how insecure you are, how hopeless you are. You're a lowlife, and every time you read the story of a Gadol B'Yisrael or of a tzaddik, you feel the distance. You feel how far. You feel that you'll never make it, especially when your good rabbi reminds you through his lovely divrei musar what a spiritual loser you really, really are, and you will forever be. This is where most people get verchapt. They don't have the emunah, the demus the yoiknoi shel Yaakov, to counteract that message and to say, you, du bist a chelik eloikam imal. You're a priceless gift. God loves you unconditionally. Your preciousness to him is indispensable. There's something about you in the history of humanity that nobody before you or after you will ever be able to fulfill. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you don't have a big Yetzer Hara. It doesn't mean you don't have a big animal soul. It doesn't mean you don't have to be very honest. But the honesty must be in context. Vayonos, vayetze achutza. He left the beged, ozav bigdoi biyada. You got to turn to Eishes Peitifra and say, my beged will stay with you. You can call me a traitor from today till tomorrow. I am not my beged. The greatest tragedy in life is when you think that you are your suit, and the suit is you. They say about a Chelam Yid who was once traveling on a train. And he's traveling, and you know Yidden from Chelam, right? You're familiar with Chelam Yidden? I was once in Toronto, I was speaking about Chelam, and I was telling stories about Chelam. And an elderly woman, mamish, you could see she was a yeshisha. She was an elderly yidna. She raised her hand and says, "Excuse me, Rabbi Jacobson, before you go on, I just want to tell you I was born and raised in Chelam." So it's like, I said, wow. I mean, I know the Marsha was a Rav in Chelam for 9 years. You know that? The Marsha was, okay, so now you know. Next time you go to Chelam, you'll know the Marsha was a Rav there. But Marsha, you know, is the back of the Gemara, right? She's sitting in front of me. She says, "Excuse me. Before you move on, I come from Chelam, Abissal Derech Eretz, and the people in Chelam were very wise. But the other Jews were jealous of them." So what do you do when you're jealous of somebody? You create a whole folklore of humor to bring out how stupid he is because you have issues with your own defense mechanisms. I mean, it's a defense mechanism against Chelam. But anyway, some of the Chelam stories are very good, whether they happened or not. Ich weiß nicht, but the idea is the chavart. The idea is an idea. So there was a Chelam Yid who was traveling and on a long overnight train ride, and it was late at night. He decided to go to sleep. So he turns to the conductor and he says, "Do me a favor. I have to get out at my stop at 4:15 a.m. Wake me up so I can get out 4:30. No problem." The lights go off in the cabin. This Yid removes his begodim, his garments, and he goes to sleep. When the conductor wakes him up, it's still pitch dark in the train, so he doesn't see anything. And near him was sleeping a Russian general. So instead of putting on his own clothes, he puts on the clothes of the Russian general. He leaves the train. He comes home. His wife sees him. Says, Yankel, you went crazy? He says, what? She says, you look different. He says, what happened? Look in the mirror. He takes a look in the mirror and he sees this handsome charmant, this krasavitsa, as they would say, this handsome Russian general. He turns to his wife and he says, I always said that the Russian conductors are real shlamazolim. You see, he woke up the Russian general instead of me. And but it's not such an anecdote. Because when it comes to life, that's often what happens. The beged becomes me. The boyged becomes me. I become the traitor. I become the lowly one. Vatispeseyu bevigdoi. She chaps you by your begida, by your beged, by your sense of betrayal to God, to yourself, to your family, by all your mistakes you ever made. And she says, Shichva imi, just give it up. And the moment the Jew comes to the fore is when you have the ability to say, Haltzich b'daim beged, I am not my garment, I am not the boyged. This is what the Baal Shem Tov, this is what the Magid of Mezrich, the Baal HaYelul of Yud Tes Kislev, and this is what the Baal HaTanya v'Shulchan Aruch Schusam Yagan Aleinu, and their Talmidim and Talmidim, and all of their Svarim and all of their Maimorim and all of their Siddhis. Essentially, it's one of the main nekudas they bring out, and that is, never ever, in the darkest or brightest of moments, through thick and thin, when the sun is shining and when the sun sets, never ever doubt or question the empowerment that you have in your pnimiyus hanefesh to be able to connect to your best and truest self, because it is always there and it's unchangeable. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'vrach. L'chaim, l'chaim. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Aya, ya, ya, da, da, ya, ya. You understood? Ya, ya, ya.
But Rashi says, Rashi says, it's a shame. Leo. That shame was like
I don't, but hey, it's it.
Mayan, you refuse. You don't trust me, yeah? Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Reb Tzvi, understood?
Yes.
It's a continuation from Hadich.
I know. I heard. I was hoping you were going to go again, and then I was going to go, but
my son's bar mitzvah that Shabbos.
That Shabbos?
I would have gone. I would have gone.
Next to the following year.
Blina.
Yeah. I'll be by the Shabbaton. It's a Shem.
It's not Hadich. Ah, yeah, 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 ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Did ya, yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. We're now, Yud Tes Kislev is one of the few times a year that by Chassidim they sing the niggin known as the Daled Babas. It's usually not sung because it's considered to be an extremely spiritually intense niggin that has to be sung at the right time with the right appropriate hachana. Yud Tes Kislev is sung at a chasana, at a bris, and Yud Tes Kislev is one of those times. It's the niggin that the Baal HaTanya composed, the whole niggin. It has 4 parts, mechuven keneged the 4 worlds. Asiya, then Yitzira, and then Beriya, and then Atzilus. Those who have an understanding in Kabbalah and Chassidus see the parallel between the 4 stanzas of the niggin and the 4 worlds, which correspond to the 4 levels of the Jewish neshama and nefesh, ruach neshama, and then the highest Atzilus, which is chaya and yechidah shebenefesh, the b'china of Atzilus. This niggin has a tremendous, tremendous power when one is, especially when one is tuned into it and aware of it. And now we're going to have the schus to sing this niggin of the Baal HaTanya. Chaim. An ene komt van de Balatanya. It's a family simcha. It's not just. People often ask the question, especially recently, what's the right way of disciplining yourself, disciplining your children, disciplining your loved ones, disciplining your student? What's the balance between love and punishment, between penalties and affection? What's the mahalach? There's a Torah from the Baal Shem Tov, the Hanukkah Baal Shem Tov, Schusa Yagan Aleinu, which the Yom Tov of Yud Tes Kislev is essentially a Yom Tov of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidus, the one who revealed the Oimek Nishmas HaTorah, which we call Torah Chassidus Pnimiyus HaTorah. One of the Baal Shem Tov's Talmidim, his greatest Talmidim, was the Hanukkah Toldos Yaakov Yosef, Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, the Rav of Pulna. And he wrote a sefer called Toldos Yaakov Yosef. In Parshas Boy, in Toldos Yaakov, I think it's Parshas Boy, he brings a Torah from his Rebbe that he heard from the Baal Shem Tov. And when the Toldos Yaakov Yosef brings from the Baal Shem Tov, much of the Baal Shem Tov himself didn't write any Svarim, nor did the Maggid. But what we have is from the students that they wrote. And one of the greatest sources of the Baal Shem Tov's Torah is the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, because he wrote down many things from the Baal Shem Tov, and it's mamish, as we say in halacha, klei rishon. It's mamish what he heard himself. So he brings a Torah in Parshas Boy on the pasuk that we actually said this morning from Tehillim, the Shir of Yom Revi. Keil nekamos Hashem, keil nekamos Sophia. How does that pasuk usually rub you? How does it make you feel? Tell me. There was one Sayyid, a mashpia, so he turned to his Talmud in the middle of a Farbrengen, and he says, I want to ask you, you finish davening Shemona Esrei, then you say, Yiu l'rotzoin imrei fi v'hegyun libi lefanecha. He says, how do you have the chutzpah to say that? A whole Shemona Esrei you were thinking about everything else in the world. Suddenly, Yiu l'rotzin imrei fi. How do you have the chutzpah? So one of the Talmudim says, because by Yiu l'rotzin we're also thinking about something else. So it's not a problem. Right? You get that? Okay. There was once a Yid, he said, I was like, what's pshat? Eile v'rechev, ve'eile v'asusim, v'anachnu b'shem Hashem alekenu nasker. We don't need horses. So he said, I was like, when a Gentile, a goy, wants to travel somewhere, how does he get there? He needs a chariot, he needs a horse, he needs an airplane, he needs a car, he needs a boat. It says, V'anachnu, a Jew, when he wants to travel, B'shem Hashem alekenu nasker, he just has to start davening Shemona Esrei. And it's muftach, in the middle of Shemona Esrei, he'll go to Yisroel for a few weeks. Then he'll go to Australia. He could visit Paris, London, Los Angeles, and Honolulu, all first class. All he needs is B'Shem Hashem Elokeinu Nasker. So if by Kel Nekamas Hashem, Kel Nekamas Eifiyah, you're thinking about what you think by Yiu l'rotzin imrei fi, so you don't have a problem. But if you actually think about the words, so how does the pasuk make you feel? Tell me honestly. Huh? It's a psashar for pasuk, yeah? Psashar for pasuk. Keil nekamas Hashem, noch twice. No, we didn't get the message once. God, you know what it means? You know what it means? God is a God of revenge. And again, Keil nekamas Hashem, Keil nekamas, the God of revenge, Hoifia, appeared. It is da. Kum de Hanukkah Baal Shem Tov. Tamu Ruki, open your hearts. Svasayim Yishak. You know what he says? David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Tzadik Dalet, Keil nekamas Hashem. God is a God of revenge. Now you want to know, really? Wow. Sounds like some people I know. Sounds like some people I know. Welcome, Lord. Revenge, huh? Okay, why don't you start right now? Zog the Heilige Baal Shem Tov. That the Pasuk explains, what do we mean? What do we mean, Kel Nekamas? What does it mean, Kel Nekamas Hashem? You know how he's a Kel Nekamas? You know how he's a God of Nekama? Haifiyah. He appears. That's the revenge. And he explains. He says, Marshal, a metaphor. Told us Yaakov Yosef, a metaphor of a young man who was a simpleton. He was a fool. He was what we call today an imbecile, a moron. He didn't have seichel. And the country had a king who was mamish, a benevolent monarch. He loved his subjects, and his subjects loved him. He was an unparalleled leader in kindness, generosity, and compassion. But this simple, foolish boor didn't know better. So he sees the king walking, and he wants some action, and he knows he's a big guy. So he takes rocks, and he throws it on the king's face. Says the Baal Shem Tov, how does the king take revenge of this boy? So you might think, how? How? He imprisons him. He punishes him. He gives him lashes. He gives him a spanking. He teaches him a lesson that he comes out b'shein v'ayin, he'll never forget. Says, no. That's not what you do for this child. What the king does is haifiyah. What does it mean, haifiyah? He says he takes the child into his palace. He learns with him. He spends time with him. He shows him his love to him. And at some point, the child realizes who this person is. He becomes aware. The king allows this child to become aware of who he is, haifiyah. He allows him to see him, to appreciate him, to behold him. And then this child looks at himself and he says, Oi, what did I do? I am so ashamed. How can I fix it? How can I correct it? Kael nekamas Hashem. How does Hashem take nekama? Haifiyah. He shows up in a person's life. He lets a Jew see what is Elokus. What is this that we say when we speak about God? Godliness, Getlichkeit. What is this? What is this? Is it a monster? Is it a bulldozer? Is it somebody who's been working out in the gym for 5,775 years and is waiting for every sin that you do to be able to roast you in the Shiva Meduri Gehenim? Somebody who records every mistake you make and makes sure that you're going to get punished for every single detail to the point that you will remember not to start up with him. Says the Pasuk, Kael nekama isaifiyah. By the Rebbeinu Shalom, what's pshat nekama? When we say, Kael kana, poikid avos albonim, noikem, what's pshat? Haifiyah. Can a person really betray God if he doesn't know what God is? I want to ask you a question. There's a mitzvah kabed savicha v'simecha. Let's say you never met your mother in your life, right? And a woman walks over to you and says, do me a favor, drive me to LaGuardia Airport, I need a lift at 4 a.m. And you say, I'm sorry, I'm busy. It's your mother. My mother is dead. You never met her. You're going to say you were over a mitzvah skibbada? What happens if you met your mother but you never saw a mother? You never saw a mother. Can you betray your mother if you never had a mother? Can you betray God if you don't know what it is? Can a Jew really do an Aveira b'mezid if he doesn't have a tam in Elokus? Can I betray you willingly if I know nothing about you? I don't even know you to betray you. If you get me, you chap me, you have a havon in me, you have a tfis in me, and then I tell you to do something and you say, Loi metanale vayimoin. That's amazing. You understand? What's missing is Haifiyah. He knows what Ruchnius is. He knows what Neshama is. He knows what a mitzvah is. He knows what a blad gemara is. He knows what a Perek Mishnayos is. He knows what a Pasuk Chumash is. He knows what a Halach in Shulchan Aruch is. He knows what a Chelek Elekami Mal is. He knows what Dveikus is. He knows what Dveikus is. He knows what Tainug is. He knows what love is. He knows what Matan Torah is. His whole conception of God may be completely distorted. He's doing an affair amazing. What makes it amazing? What makes it willing? He doesn't even know what he looks like. He knows what God looks like. He never even faced himself. He faced his creator. Keil nekamas Hashem is through Keil nekamas Haifiyah. He appears. He allows you a glimpse of what a soul is, and what godliness is, and what truth is, and what depth is, and what emes is. That's how he takes revenge. Because then you become aware of who you are and the significance of what you did, the significance of what you didn't do, the significance of your words, of your thoughts, of your lifestyle, of your behavior. That's Pshat Nekama. You want to discipline your children? You want to punish your children? You want to penalize your children? One thing, Haifiyah. Appear to them. Appear in their lives. That's what a Nekama is. If Nekama is, I'm going to teach you a lesson. I will strike you in your kishkas to the point that you will never forget me. That Nekama has nothing to do with Kedusha. That Nekama has to do with your own frustrations and usually insecurities and own pain that you never resolved, and you're just using somebody else as a punching bag for your own frustrations. Think about it. Nekama by godliness, Haifiyah. Appear, reveal yourself, show him how much you love him and cherish him. Explain to him who you are, what your values are, in a way that he or she can so appreciate them. That's the greatest Nekama in the world, because then they say, that was a mistake. That wasn't good. I want to do it differently next time. Here is the aside. Why do people work hard in life? I know, to pay bills. I know that. I know somebody got to pay the bills. But why do people work extra hard? A lot of people. It's something that Jews are very into. Tzemach Tzedek writes, you have a lot of non-Jews who are businessmen, Balei Asakim. But when a Jew goes into a business, he sometimes becomes obsessed. There's no such a thing 9 to 5 when a Jew owns a business. In the shower, in the mikveh, in shul, shalosh Siddhis, Sunday afternoon, Malava Malka. Even right now, he's texting. It's 10:30 at night. Forget. But every Jew thinks that the next text message is going to be the one that's going to mamish ensure that he becomes a gvir like Kairach. So if he doesn't check his text message, Rahman al-Atlan, he may be refusing a deal where you can get commission $95,000. And you just refused it. Let me ask you, somebody who's going to give you commission $95,000 is more stable and more normal than texting you at this hour of the night that you don't think of because you're not stable. Just joking. But the point is, people get obsessed. They don't have menuchas hanefesh. Why do we work and work? Some people work to a point of exhaustion. They work mamish, they don't stop. So generally, there's two reasons. I know there's a lot more. But generally, there's two reasons. One is, if I could put it this way, when you grow up in the world and you feel that you're not really loved and you're not really cherished and you're not really valued, so something in your brain says, you know what? If they don't love me, at least they're going to need me. They may not love me, but they're going to need me. And therefore, either I'm going to be the Messiah, or I'm going to bring the Messiah, or I am going to create an invention that will turn over the world, or I will make so much money. But you told me once, what was his ambition to make so much money? What was his ambition? What was his ambition? He says he was thrown out of a yeshiva. He wanted to make so much money that that yeshiva should come begging him to come back to the building. And he made the money, and the principal came to him and he said, no. And that was his taina, gewaldig. But in one way or another, you don't love me, you're going to need me. Or even if it's not articulated in that way, I often feel that I need to compensate for a lack of identity, for a lack of value. If I'm successful, if I work hard, if I produce, I could look at myself and say, there's a pesach cheftze here. There's a gavre, there's a cheftze, there's a chticharu yelischapet. That's one way of looking. Now I want to take a break and I want to look at Judaism, at Yiddishkeit. Let's face it, Yiddishkeit demands a lot from a person. What does the Gemara say in Yevamis? Those who are learning Masechta Yevamis, Namastama, yeah? You still remember Daf Mem Zayin? You're still in Yevamis. You're keeping hold of the Siddhis, and the Siddhis of the Siddhis, and the Siddhis of the Siddhis of the Siddhis, Atzai Fa'ilam, because that sums up Yevamis. Siddhis, mit Siddhis, von Siddhis, und Siddhis, von Siddhis, und Siddhis. There's a gewaldige piece, I think Daf Mem Zayin, if I'm not mistaken, Rashi brings it in Rus. When Naomi tells Arpa and Rus, go home, go back, get yourself a life. So Arpa, Vatishak Arpa lechamoisu, she gives the shviger a kiss, and she says goodbye. Rus, no. Rus says, Bashetelchi elech, Bashetolini olin, Amech ami, Elakayich Elakoi. Only Amavis, Rak Amavis, Yafid Beni, Bainayich, Vishame cover. I'm sorry, but Tamusi, Amos, Vishame cover. At the surface, it looks like a great expression of deep loyalty and devotion. The emesis, Rus follows Naomi. I don't know if it ever happened again in history that a daughter-in-law should follow a mother-in-law voluntarily. I'm not sure it ever happened again. Zog the Gemara in Yevamis. Ba'ashetelchi elech. Naomi told Rus to Zanmais of Tchum Shabbos. You become a Jew, you can't walk past 2,000 amas. Ba'ashetelchi elech. You become a Jew, there's an Isur Yichud. Ba'ashetelini alun. You become a Jew, there's Taryag mitzvahs, Amech Ami. You become a Jew, there's no Avodah Zarah, Elakayich Elakai. You become a Jew, there's Dalit, Mrs. Bezdin, Skilas, Reifa, Eric Chenek. Bashetamusi Amos. There's 2 cemeteries for Niskol and Nisrof and Nerog and Nechnakin. Shamekove. That's their introduction to Judaism. Wow. So how do you look at this? How do you look at Yiddishkeit? How you teufus Torah and mitzvahs? How you teufus a shachris, a mincha, a mayrif? I was once giving a lecture about Islam, so I said, what's my idea that Muhammad wasn't a Jew? Muhammad first wanted to embrace Judaism and embrace the Jews as long as they would believe that he's a prophet. Then they rejected him, so he had to make a new religion because he couldn't reconcile with Judaism. So what did he do? So if he was a Jew and he wanted to reform Judaism, instead of 3 tefillas a day, he makes 5 tefillas a day. A Jew wouldn't do that. From 3, make 1, make nothing. He makes 5. You had the Tag is Yom Kippur. Instead of fasting 4 times a year, you fast a whole month. It's called Ramadan. Right? It's intense. It's intense. The Gemara says in Brachas, Avram was Masakin Shachris, Yitzchak Mincha, Yaakov Tikkun Tfilas Arvis. Somebody once asked Pshat, what's up is Yaakov Tikkun Tfilas Arvis? Why? Avram, it says Vayashkem Avram b'boiker. Yitzchak, it says Vayetze Yitzchak b'suach b'sad lifnei arev. By Yaakov, it actually says Vayivga b'makom vayolin sham kiva shemesh afterwards. There's a Tosfos and brachas, the raya that might have could be before night. Separate sugya. Said the Pashtus. Yaakov came home at night from the field, right? Vayova Yaakov min asada barav. He came home at night. He walks into the house, and suddenly he says, 12 boys need a bath. Leah says Reuven has a virus, Shimon has a strep, Levi has an ear infection, Yehuda's in a bad mood, Yisachar has a bad cough, Zvulun was expelled from yeshiva, Dan Naphtali got Asher need a good night story, and Yosef need tender, loving care. Yaakov said, Ma'iriv, Ma'iriv, ich darf laufen zu Ma'iriv. Yaakov thinking, wouldn't you make Ma'iriv? You would also make Ma'iriv. Of course you got to run to Ma'iriv. That's what you told your wife tonight, no? Ma'iriv, I got to run to Ma'iriv, 8:15 Ma'iriv. That's what you tell her every night. Ma'iriv, Mishnah Brura, Baruch Hashem, the men have shiurim. So it's a machai, whenever there's a stressful moment, Ma'iriv, Minchid, there's a shia, there's mamash an asif, it's an important asif, it's going to save all of Flatbush. You have a kid, he needs your help, it's a big asif, I got to run. I'll see you next Shemitah. You remember last year there was a big snow in Yerushalayim. You remember the big snow? Last winter, it paralyzed Yerushalayim. They're not used to snow. So I saw somebody sent me an SMS message, what we call Hamachuna Belaz text. Hamachuna Belaz, they call it, what do they call it over there? So I saw a text message. There's a Malameda teacher in a Cheder Meir Shiurim. So Sunday morning in the middle of the snow, the principal of the Cheder of the yeshiva sends a text message to the Malamed, and he says, you don't have to show up today to teach, because very few kids showed up because of the snow. So the Malamed writes back in the text, I'm coming. He says, no, there's no reason to show up. Only 10 boys from 35 boys, only 10 boys showed up in Cheder. You don't have to come. He says, I'm coming. He says, what do you have to bother? He says, because in Cheder there's 10 boys and at home there's 15. So of course Yaakov tikkun tfilas arvis. What's the question? You run for Ma'iriv. So that's one way of looking at it. Keeps everybody busy. But when I demand from a person everything, your nefesh, your ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida, I want you 24 hours a day. And you get into it. It can be for one of two reasons. Either it could be because you feel so bad about yourself that you always have to prove yourself. Otherwise, you have so much guilt. You have so much pain. You have so much fear. You have so much insecurity. You feel so unwanted and unloved that you always have to compensate. And the Jewish religion works perfectly. Or it's the opposite. You know why you work so hard? You know why you don't stop? Because you feel so gifted. And you ask yourself, how can I not share this gift with the world? You feel that every moment has the power of eternity. You feel that your life is so precious. Your days and nights have so much meaning. Your mind and your destiny have so much purpose. You realize the greatness embedded in you and in your potential and in your abilities and in your resources. You feel pashut the matana of every breath. And therefore you say, what am I going to waste this sitting on a couch and just reading some foolish magazine in order to dull my anxiety, or spend time at the pantry in order to alleviate my emptiness, or go do something else I won't elaborate in order to feel better about myself? You work so hard because you see how much incredible koyach there is in you. It's an opposite mahalach. It's an opposite mahalach. It's a different type of nekama. It's two versions of Judaism. You could look at Judaism and say, God never stops. He never stops. I'm so bad that I always have to do something to justify myself. Nicht minches shachris. The shachris is meidav. Nicht meidav is a shir. I finish my shir. If I don't stop, it's bittul Torah. Now is Shabbos, now is Yom Tif, now is Erev Tavshillah, now is Muktzah, now is Shatnez, now is Tzitzis. Relax. No, doesn't stop. And a Jew who takes it seriously doesn't stop. And often children and youth grow up with that tremendous sense of guilt and negative image about themselves, and therefore you always have to compensate. If you don't love me, you're going to need me. And it's a certain paradigm of life. What we need is the Keil Nekama Ishaifiyah. When the Rebbeinu Shalom appears in somebody's life, when you recognize your dveikus, when you recognize how holy, how incredibly sacred, how powerful you are, your soul is, when you recognize yourself from God's perspective. I once saw Chernobyl of art. What's Pshat? He didn't see Yaakov's image. He saw his own image from Yaakov's perspective. He saw himself the way Yaakov sees him. He looked at himself. He's a little 17-year-old teenager, stuck in Egypt, a slave in Potiphar's house. What could he do better? He saw himself the way Yaakov sees him. Yaakov doesn't see him as a 17-year-old loser. Yaakov sees him as the Shalshelis, as one of the Shifte Yutke, as somebody who's incredibly holy and good and sacred, as we explained earlier. When you see that self from Hashem's perspective, then you want to do more. I have to do more. There's too much. I have so much to give. It's not arrogance. Oh, the world was created for me because I'm perfect, I'm impeccable, I'm flawless. This guy once told his wife, I never made a mistake in my life. Most people think it, but this guy actually told his wife. His wife said, never? He said, yeah, once in 1966 I made a mistake. She said, what? He said, I thought I made a mistake. Somebody once told me about somebody, he says, you see this guy? He's a self-made man and he worships his creator. Arrogance is the greatest form of insecurity. I have to inflate my ego because there's nothing there. In the real understanding of Yiddishkeit, Keil Nekama Seifiyah, the greatest revenge is, we speak about Mashiach, Yom Hadin, the great Yom Hadin. What do you think it's going to look like? Haifiyah. God will appear. And when God appears, you say, Tamu Eru Ki Tov Hashem. That's why the Lashon Keil is used. Keil Nekama, you know, Keil is the Lashon of Chesed. Pasuk says, Chesed, Keil, Kol Hayoim. Wie kommt Keil an Nekama? Sagt the Baal Shem Tov, because the Nekama by Hashem is Chesed. Show the kid more love. Show him who you are. Haifiyah, appear. Let him experience what it means to have a mother. Let him experience what it means to have a father. Let him experience what it means to be trusted, what it means to be believed in, what it means to be empowered, what it means that somebody loves you unconditionally and believes in you. That's how you take Nekama. And this captures one of the Siddhis of Shittas Baal Shem Tov. And the Shitta articulated in a manner of Chachma Bina Das in the works of the Baal HaTanya over and over. That the key distinction is between Haifiyah and not Haifiyah. If it's not Haifiyah, then the burden often becomes unbearable. And if it's Haifiyah, then, it's a geschmack. I'll tell you a Maisa, I heard mamash from the Bala Maisa. Gewaldike Maisa. You deal with your kids, listen to the Maisa. I heard this Maisa Sayyid, passed away a few years ago. His name was Rabbi Shalom Ber Gordon. He was a rabbi in New Jersey, first in Newark, and then in Maplewood, New Jersey. A rav there for many, many years from the 1940s. When he was hired by his congregation in the 1940s, he was a Yid who came from Dukshitz, from Poland, came to America with his family. They were saved, and he became a rav. He died, I remember, I knew him, Achrit Shal Pesach 2000, Tafshin Samach he passed away. a varme Yid, a tired Yid, clever Jew. So I heard this ma'aseh from him at a wedding. We met at a chuppah once in New Jersey. He was, whatever we met, and he told me the ma'aseh by the Kabbalah's Pana. It left such an impression. He said when he went out to become a Rav, he was a young Bacher, 1940s, Chassidus boy, Ehrlich Yid, real Ehrlich Yid, comes to this congregation, and this is orthodoxy in the 1940s in New Jersey. You probably know the Matzif, and he had a terrible dilemma. The dilemma was, he stood up at the bimah to give a drasha. If he would tell the Balabatim what he really thinks about them, they would fire him before the drasha was over. If he would just tell them what they would like to hear, he's not doing his job. He's not a Rav. He's a patronizer. He's not a Rav. What do? Do you get fired, or do you say the truth? So he went to consult with his Rebbe, who was the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rayatz. Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Shneis and Schusa Yogan Aleinu, who passed away Yud Shvat, 1950, Topshin Yud, lived his last 10 years in New York and Brooklyn, settled in Crown Heights. The Rayatz. So he went to visit him. This was the last years of his life. 1949, 1950, he went to see the Rayatz. And he went on a Yechidus. The Rebbe Rayatz, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, lived on the 2nd floor of 770 Eastern Parkway, which was in the news this week, tragically. That's the basement. He lived on the 2nd floor, not the 1st floor, the 2nd floor. And Baruch Shtak Ever Refuah Shlema, Refuah Kroiva, Levi Yitzchak Ben Rezel, and the Toich Kol Choli Yisroel. And he went and he told the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe's problem. He says, "I have a problem. You know, I'm a young Rav. You have the Balabatim. Many of them don't keep Shabbos, Kashrus. Mikveh was very weak in America at that point. Most kids didn't get a Jewish education. What am I supposed to do? I can get up and say nice vertlach, right? I could speak about Judaism, but I'm not doing my job. And if I do my job, they're going to fire me." Not a bad question. Really, every Rosh Hashiva, every Mashgiach, every Mashpia, every father, every mother, in one way or another, has this question with many children, many bachrim, many girls. How do you deal? How do you relate to somebody who's weak, who's struggling, who's falling, who's stumbling? Rabbi Gordon tells me, he says, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, I'm going to tell you the device I heard from the Rebbe Rayatz that day, mi peh kotshoy, and it accompanied me for the last 51 years of my life, every single day. He says, the Rebbe looked at me, and he says, "Du bist amol gewen in Auschwitz?" He wasn't expecting that response. Have you ever visited Auschwitz? Now, there may be a few of you who Nebuch don't know what Auschwitz is. Auschwitz is one of the most cherished icons of Jewish culture. I don't know if we would have survived without Auschwitz. They say we wouldn't have survived more than Jews kept Shabbos, Shabbos kept the Jews. But more than the Jews schwitzed in the Schwitz hat ausgeschwitzt die Jiden. The Schwitz is what we call a sauna today, right? But it's not a sauna. The Schwitz had a whole cultural component to it. It still has in certain communities. First of all, there were people who hung out there all week. Koilel Jungelite, Gvidim, people who had a Yerusha, and so on and so forth, right? Somebody asked me, but most of the B'dichas, he said, maybe we could be Mavatal, the Chedim of Rabbeinu Gershom, against polygamy. I said, why? He says, I want to marry 2 wives. I say, why? He says, 1 wife is not enough to support me. I need a 2nd wife to work. He said it as a Milsa de B'dichis, so don't worry. But it was funny. So, Auschwitz was a gewaltige Inyan. Jews would come in, right? Of course, there was a matziv, you know, there was no vatispeseyu bevigdoi in the Schwitz. It was hot. There's Jews still today. There's a mikveh I go sometimes to. And they open the Schwitz Friday morning, and there's a Yid who sits there for 2 hours and he eats semichkas, sunflower seeds in the Schwitz. And the Schwitz Jews would discuss the fate of the universe. This is before websites, before commenting on websites. So that's when Jews would decide where the world should go, where it's going to go. Mi b'chayim, mi b'mavis, mi b'skilim, mi b'herek. The Schwitz was the place. Anyway, I'm being Yosef commentary, but the Rebbe asked him, have you visited a Schwitz? Avada, who doesn't know what a Schwitz is? Now, so he says, what happens in the Schwitz? A Yid comes in, a Jew comes in, and it's hot. The steam goes up, and the person appreciates it and enjoys it. In the old Schwitzes, they used to have somebody they called in Yiddish a beder. You know what a beder is? Like the gabbai of the Schwitz, the shamash. And they had like broom. They looked like brooms, like whips, but they were made from brooms. What were they called? You remember them? A bezim. And when your body really warmed up, so you were red, hot red all over the place, and you would turn to the bed and you would say, give me a bissel schmitz. Take the bezim, take the whip made out of, broomstick, and whip my back, scratch my back, whip my back. And he would come over to you and he would take the bezim. Man, come on, more. Strike me again. And he would say, starke. I want it to be more intense. Mechaya. The Rebbe looked at him and says, I have a kash. You're walking in the street, and a guy comes over to you with a whip and starts whipping you in your back. What do? What would you do? Either you whip him back, right? Or if you're afraid, you run away. Or you call 911. Or you call Shoimrim. Or Psamamish Halt Gargar, Misaskim, whatever it is. But you don't turn to the guy and say, man. So the Rebbe says, what's the Havana, what's Pshat? That there you tell the bed, they're man and starke. So he says, Shalom Bear. When somebody just comes over to you with a whip and starts whipping you, you hit him back or you run away, you get defensive, you get angry, you get agitated, you get scared. But when you walk into a schwitz, and the first thing is you're warmed up. You get warmed up. Ungewarmt. I warm you up. And the warmth increases. But it's not only you get warmed up. You get elevated, because in the schwitz, the higher you go, right? The hotter it is, heat rises. So first you start on the lower bench. Those of you who are schwitz experts, anybody here? If you're schwitz experts, if you did a lot of time, you go from one bench and then you go to the next bench, and then when you're ready, you go to the top, and that's when you get the schmitz. So he says, you bring in a yid, he gets warmed up, mevalim temon, umeheip them off, and he gets elevated. And then you take out the whip, and then you start hitting him. You know what he's going to tell you? Man, starker. He said, if you get up on the bim, man, you look at your balabatim, and you start whipping them. You're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. You're a disappointment to God. You're a disappointment to the Jewish people. There was never a generation as horrible as you guys. You're lazy, good-for-nothing, spoiled brats, addicted to your iPhone, cell phones, iPhone 5, iPhone 6. You already invented iPhone 8. Your Palm Pilots, your computers. You're a rotten bunch of apples. I don't know why you're in yeshiva. But you know what? You're here already. And if you behave well, I won't tell your father on you. And I won't tell the Rosh Yeshiva. So maybe you'll hope you'll get into Beis Medrash Gavoya, or maybe even to Brisk. You take out the whip. You start whipping. Either they hit back. That's 1% of guys. They end up ironic. The other guys who don't hit back run away. I don't know where they end up. The other guys just take it, b'shalom, and they repress their emotions for eternity. Till they go to therapy at 51. Maybe. It doesn't work. It's not the way. The Rebbe said, you want to take out the bezim? First you have to create a schwitz. You Beis Medrash darf sein a schwitz. Where Jews, they've had an ungewarmt. Warm them up, warm their bones, warm their hearts, warm their souls. Eish tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo yisichbe. Stop brennen a fire. And then lift them up. Lift them up. Elevate them. Intrigue them with their own heights. Intrigue them with their own greatness. Lift them up. Hoifia. Hoifia. Show them. Show them. Show them what God is. Show them what truth is. Show them depth. Show them truth. Show them authenticity. Show them vulnerability. And then, you know what's going to happen when you take out your besom? They're going to say, meh, meh, meh. You think people don't want to hear the truth about themselves? Who doesn't want to hear the truth about themselves? We pay thousands of dollars to every yatzmach perkani in the world that we hope will tell us the truth about ourselves. We're ready to... Who doesn't want to hear the truth about themselves? But we're afraid to hear the truth about ourselves because it's painful. But if you could put me into a schwitz, you could relax me, you could make me feel you don't hate me. Kel nekama seifia, I want to hear more and more. And this is one of the great messages of Chassidus. If anybody reads the Tanya, if anybody learns the Tanya, and it's a book that you could read but needs learning. Took us 6 years in Borough Park to finish the first 53 chapters, and I was going pretty fast because in the middle of the first parak, I was going slower. Maybe you'll remember an old man stood up in the middle of the sheet and says, Rabbi Jacobson, the way you're going, by the time you finish, I'll be dead 15 years. And I want to be alive for the siyum. So speed it up. So how can I refuse such a yid? He says, I'm now 83. The way you're going, there's no way I'm going to survive. I hope he didn't mean he's going to die from the shiurim. You know, it was once Memorial Day weekend, so a kid came into shul and there was all the lights were signed for all those who died in service. So the kid turns to the rabbi and he says, which service? Was it Friday night or Shabbos morning that they died? So I told this yid, I'm going to speed it up. So we spent the 3 shiurim on a perik, 4 shiurim, 2 shiurim. We finished 6 years later, and this Jew was at the siyum. He was at the siyum, he stood up, and he said, I was here from the beginning, Baruch Hashem, I finished, I always wanted to learn the Sefer well. If somebody learns it well, I'll use an expression in Yiddish. The Alter Rebbe schneit sticker. The Balatanya is very sharp, it's a very intense book. It's not like people think it's a Tylenol. Feel-good drug. You'll sit down, I'll tell you, you're such a cute kid. You're such a charming fellow. You have such good looks. Guy weighs 400 pounds, but I'll tell him he's skinny. Doesn't work that way in the Tanya. It's very, very exacting. It's very, very demanding. But there's 2 ways to be very demanding. One is, I'm so bad. I have to prove myself. And one is, you're so good. How can you afford to tell yourself you're weak? That's the Tanya. You're so good. How can you afford to tell yourself that you're weak? I can't accept it. You may not believe in yourself, but I believe in you too much to allow you to surrender to your own mediocrity and to believe that you really cannot celebrate your life fully and become an Oived Hashem be'emes. Not based on somebody else, based on your life. Which is his title, his lashon in the title, Sharblat. You're so big, I cannot accept that you're small. That's not stam easy going, I don't care, I just love you, you're just good, just sit, do nothing. That's not real love. Love that breeds laziness, love that breeds apathy, is not real love. Because I love you as a victim or I love you as a powerful person. I love you as a nobody or I love you as somebody that the Rebbeinu Shalom says, B'shvil loy nivra ha'olam. He has a lashon in Tanya Perek Mamalef. V'hinei Hashem nitzov alav u'maloi chol haaretz kvoidai u'mabit alav u'voichin kloyes v'levim oivdei karayim. That the Rebbeinu Shalom stops everything and tunes into this person and says, Hareini es marayich, hashmiini es koilech, ki koilech orev u'marich nove. Maloi chol haaretz kvoidei, but I want to know that the whole universe is not negeya to me as much as negeya to me the ability that you have right now to break your addiction. The ability right now that you have to say no to this substance or this piece of food. The ability that you have right now to do this, to say this, to think this. Whatever it may be, in Avodas Hashem, in Adam Lamakim, in Adam Lachaver. The Baal Shem Tov once said, Moidedik, the Gemara says in Psachim, Kuftes, Ein, Tzadik Vav, I think, Ein Simcha Ela Bebasar, right? Mancha Beis HaMikdash Kayam, Ein, V'samachta B'chagecha, Ein Simcha Ela Bebasar. Isn't it strange? Go to a nutrition class, right? Or some, recovery group, and say, by the way, according to the Talmud, the only way to be happy, rib steak, lamb chops, okay, goats. Really? Ein simcha ela bebasa? It doesn't even say simcha bebasa. Ein simcha. There's a lashon of Tosfos and Menachos when it says ein ela, right? Ein ela, it's liikuva. It's like there's no way around it. There's no way around it. You want simcha? Where's the beef? Where is it? I don't know. Okay, Bisman Hazet's different. Fine. The Mishvarshim ain't simcha. Really, there's no other simcha. So vegetarians are depressed people. All the Jews that all Jews that don't stop eating meat, they're all happy? I'm not so sure. In fact, I think people often eat extra because they're not so happy. And the food is a very good Prozac drug. You know, it's a fast high that doesn't cost too much. It's cheaper than other things. Zak the Heilige Baal Shem Tov says, is that basar? No, ice cream. That doesn't say in Gemara. It doesn't say Ein Simcha Ela B'ice cream. That's a modern invention. Today we say Ein Simcha. There's no such thing. You can't make a Simcha Ela B'sushi. If there's no sushi, it's not a Simcha. It's not a Bar Mitzvah, it's not a Chasana. But the Gemara says basar. What's Pshat? So here it's a word from Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov says Ein Simcha Ela B'basar. Ein Simcha. The only real Simcha that the Rebbeinu Shalom, the creator of the world, has is Ela B'basar. When a Jew takes his basar, his meat, his flesh, his physicality, and he elevates it to holiness. That's the only real Simcha in life. The greatest moment of life is that a person is a bas of Adam, he's a Baal Basar, and he takes the basar and he works with it. He educates it, he elevates it, he refines it. So the next time you're confronted by your psarius, by your bruteness, by your coarseness, by your physicality, don't get depressed. Ein simcha ela b'basar. That's the greatness of avodas ha'adam. Whoever you are, to be able to work with your basar. Torah of Baal Shem Tov, Torah of the Balatanya created a shvitz. I would say a cosmic shvitz, inviting the Neshamas Yisroel to come into the shvitz, to be able to warm themselves, to be able to elevate themselves. Hoifiyah. When you have hoifiyah, then you have the Kel Nekamas Hashem. L'chaim, 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 l'chaim. There's a gewaldige Torah. The Cloak Chassidus today is a world of psychology. 300 years ago, there was no branch of wisdom called psychology. You know that. There was a branch of wisdom called philosophy. Psychology was submerged in philosophy. Part of philosophy is understanding how the galaxies work, And as part of that, you got to also understand a little bit about your anatomy. Today, philosophy is reserved for professors and a few university students who are still searching, and a few Yechidei Sgula who are still concerned with philosophy. If you're going to get up and advertise a speech, we're going to talk about philosophy, doesn't sell. Relationships, oh, self-esteem, oh, childhood wounds, oh, now you're talking. Addiction, oh, mental health, okay, now you're talking, right? What's the world today? Like in everything, there's gewaldige Meiles, there's gewaldige Chesroinus. There's a Torah from the Baal Tanya. Pasuk says in Iyov, Mipsari echze Eloika. So the Baal Tanya teaches, Pshat, Alpi Chassidus, Mipsari, from my flesh I can perceive Hashem. Meaning, the greatest example to understand the dynamics of Elokus is by studying your own basar. By understanding yourself truly, and the mechanism of the self, and the anatomy of the self, biologically and spiritually and psychologically, you can understand a lot of Hashem. And Be'etzem it's a Gemara in Brochus, Barchi nafshi es Hashem, Ma haneshama mamali es haguf, Avakadosh Baruch Hu mamali es ha'olam. In other words, there's a parallel between the relationship of the soul and the body, of the spiritual and physiological self, and the God and the cosmos. Olam katan zahar. Tanya also said once, Psari yechze leka, medaf shayerin dem basar, biz me bedorten gefinnen aleka. Shayerin means sand. Sand. You know when you sand wood? Medaf shayerin dem basar, you got to sand the basar and excavate, and you'll find a leka in the bus. As a result, when one learns Chassidus, there's an endless amount of ideas that we would today call psychological. Tremendous amount of ideas that today we would call psychological innovations, psychological brilliance, psychological observations, psychological, tremendous amounts, extraordinary amount. It's not the exclusive focus of Chassidus, but since a tremendous part of Chassidus is to uncover the pnimius of a person, and that avodas Hashem, our relationship with Hashem, should be all-encompassing, all-pervading, deep, internal, and authentic. So naturally, understanding the human dynamics and the human soul plays a major role in Chassidus. In fact, the first parak of Tanya introduces the introduction to the whole Tanya. The main thesis is Acha'inyan, quoting the Reb Chaim Vital in Shara Gdusha, and Reb Chaim Vital in Eitz Chaim from the Arizal, that L'kol ish Yisroel echad tzadik v'echad rasha yesh shtei neshamas. That the story of life is a tale of two souls, not of one soul, but of two souls. Not two cities. One city, but two souls. That's why my series on Tanya that I did is called A Tale of Two Souls. Once I was introduced to give a lecture in Pennsylvania, in a Jewish community in Pennsylvania. So the MC introduced me and he said, I want to introduce the author of A Tale of Two Cities. So the Olam looked, everybody turned around, they thought that Charles Dickens had Chiyas HaMesim. He was resurrected. Tale of Two Cities is it. Because the rabbi is a very serious guy, so they trust him. So I went up to the podium and I said, Baruch Hashem, I was privileged to hear very many nice introductions in my life. But such an introduction, I never heard. I said, not A Tale of Two Souls, it's a tale of one soul. It's not London and Paris. I'm sorry. It's one city, which is the human city. The Gemara says in Adorim that the ear is the guf, and in the city there's two souls, and they fight. They battle. unless we can create some peace treaty. And you never create peace by giving away territory. Remember that. That's the thesis of Tanya. You never create peace by ceding territory. You cede territory, they take more, and you just end up losing. You never create... You create peace by creating standards and by believing that your enemy has the ability to sober up and to mature if it sees that you're serious and firm. Essentially, the thesis of Tanya in the battle of the souls, I just thought, is really a political roadmap for the Middle East. But it's a separate inyan, because Yishmael is the Chayer Pera Adam Yivoled, Yadei Bakol V'Yad Kol Adam V'Yadei Bakol V'Yad Kol Boy. So it's actually not such a far parallel. Okay, but that's a separate sugya. So there's a word from the Baal Shem Tov that he says on a pasuk, but if you think about it, it's a priceless insight in what we call psychology. There's a pasuk in Mishlei that everybody knows, that everybody quotes. Kamayim haponim leponim, Kain leva adam alada, which means like the face that you show to the water and the water shows back to you, so is the heart of one human to another human. The face that I reflect into the water reflects back into me. So if I'm smiling and I look into the water, I'll see a smile. If I'm frowning, I'll see a frown. Whatever the image I am showing the water shows back to me. It's essentially my own image. It's not separate. So the pasuk is mechadish kein leva adam al adam, that the image, the emotion, the feeling that I project onto you will be mirrored back to me, from you to me. Of course, here it's a chiddush because it's not water, it's a human being. And that's why Balatanya writes in Tanya Perek Mem Vav, sometimes you have a love to somebody and you don't know why. You know somebody, maybe not often. You know, sometimes you really love somebody, you don't know why you like them. You know, you just like, you look at somebody, I just like this guy. What is it? What is it? His looks? There are more handsome people that you can't stand there. Can't stand them. You know, sometimes you just have this feeling, this guy I just don't like. And they never did anything to you. It's like a feeling. And you don't always have to worship the feeling, but it's like, and sometimes you just have a love to somebody. The Balatanya says, in Tanya Perek Mem Vav, that it's probably because he loves you. And if somebody loves me, I almost have no choice. I must respond in love. It's a law that God created. It's like the water. The water doesn't have a choice. I'm not going to reflect back the image. If I love you, I'm going to get back love. That's why Rabbi YY, one of the eitzes, right? If somebody, let's say in your household, for example, your wife, I know it never happens in Flatbush, but if it once happens, once a yovel, that your wife really lets you know what she thinks of you. In a good day. In a good day, right? And you're like, mamish, you don't know, you don't know if you want to live, you want to die, you want to stay married, you want to jump off the first floor, the second floor, or maybe the seventh floor. Right? And of course there's anger and resentment and etc. So one of the eitzes is, or your child really mamish sugar to the point that you don't know, if you want to, you're considering adoption. You know, the Maisa, they say that there was once an apartment in Borough Park available for rent. So somebody says he wants to rent it. So the owner, the landlord, lives downstairs. So it's a big house upstairs, but there's one tonight. You could rent it, but I'm only renting it to a couple without children. Why? My wife and I go to sleep 8:30, and we can't have people dancing on the ceiling all night. You have a mishpacha of kids, Baruch Hashem, this one is screaming, this one is whining, this one is hollering, this one is doing hakafas. We can't deal with it. The guy says, no problem. He rents the house, he signs a contract. Moves in. The first night, the balabuz goes to sleep 8:30. Suddenly, 10 o'clock, he hears celebridik dancing, jumping all over the place. The ceiling is falling in. Or so it seems. He runs up to the tenant's apartment. and he sees 14 kids. The guy, Baruch Hashem Kanayinara, was blessed with 14 little kids. He goes over to, and he says, Lamari misani. We made an agreement, no kids, no children. Guy looks in the father, looks at me, he says, you call these children? They're not children, they're chayas. They're not children. They're animals. Sometimes you have a matziv, you're mamish, you're at the end. You're at the end of your rope. How much can you pull the rope in bed? How much can you pull the rope? One of the eitzes is, kamayim aponim laponim. Be quiet. Don't shout. Don't scream. Go. Let out your steam somewhere else. Be ma'oyer on ava to the person. Be ma'oyer on ava to your wife. Be ma'oyer on ava to your children. And you'll see something magical will happen. They don't have a choice. Kamayim aponim laponim. If I love you, you have to love me back even if you hate my guts. You have no choice. That's what the Pasuk says. That's what the Baal Tanya teaches. Comes the Halakha Baal Shem Tov. And he says the metaphor really goes a step deeper. He says, I'm standing and I'm facing the water. I'm looking into the water. And whatever I show the water shows me back. The energy I project on you, that's what I get back from you. And you don't even know it's happening. Sometimes you know, sometimes it's unconscious. Unconscious. Not always. It can be conscious, but it can be unconscious, or what we call subconscious. Sagt Baal Shem Tov, take it a step deeper. You're looking at the water. There's your face, and there is your reflection in the water. Just like in a mirror. You stand in front of the mirror, there's you, and there's your reflection in the mirror. Sagt Baal Shem Tov, but something happens. I'm looking at the water. I don't see what I look like. But the water shows me what I look like because the water reflects back to me what I look like. Which, by the way, is a way of knowing who you are. Because by seeing your response to me, I know what I was giving. You have to be self-aware. You understand? By seeing the reflection of the water, I know what the water absorbed from me because it's only a reflection of me. It's nothing else. But what happens, Zakta Baal Shem Tov, when I bend down? Physically or mentally, I humble myself. I bend down. And I become lower and lower, smaller and smaller, shorter and shorter. As my head gravitates, reclines, and directs itself towards the water. Of course, first I'm standing erect, but then I get down on my knees. I get down lower and lower and lower. And my head lowers itself, lowers itself, lowers itself, until the Baal Shem Tov says, the image you reflect to the water and the image the water reflects back to you are not distinct anymore. It's one. He says, Nasachad becomes one. How? You became smaller, you became humbler, and your image and the water's image become one because you mamish, your face is by the water. In the water, kissing the water. Baal Shem Tov says, and that's what love is. Means there's two stages. There's the face, the energy I show to you, and then when I have the courage to escape my ego, to humble myself, it reaches a point where my identity and your identity become completely one. The image I reflect to the water and the image the water gives back to me are not distinct anymore.
When they had the mice by the water, bowing down was in the blood of Zara.
No, he doesn't mean bow down as that's the sugya. No, doesn't mean, of course, bow down to the water. He means the phenomenon of a person lowering their head and their face touches the water. What does this mean in a person's life? In a person's life, it means in genuine love, in genuine ava, there's a point where the image that I show you is not only reflected back to me. So there's me and there's you. What the pasuk is saying is kamayim aponim leponim kein levo adam ala adam. When you have the courage to be humble, when you have the courage that you don't have to protect your ego, because ego is Rosh Tevis, easing God out, as you learned in Hadij last year. We went to Hadij. And you have the courage to be able to really be vulnerable, which is the concept of being small in the sense you're not afraid of really connecting. So now you can reach a point like in the Mayan where there's no distinctiveness anymore, and where the water and my face become like one chefza, one metzias. But the t'nai is that the person has to be able to be truly humble and not be invested in protecting themselves. And then what they're giving and what the other person is giving can really become one. This is what we call intimacy, dveikus, or as I often say, intimacy is into me, see, where the I and the you can really merge into one. This has a lot about the dynamics of relationships, love, intimacy, vulnerability, Gilui Erva, Va'adam Yoda Eschava, etc. Spirit. Karagel by the Baal Shem Tov, the whole Olam Haza is a mashal. The whole Guf is a mashal. The Heilige Moyer Einayim writes, Moiridik, you know the Moyer Einayim, Reb Nachum Chernobyl. Nachum Chernobyl was a Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov and later of the Maggid. Reb Nachum Chernobyl, his son was Reb Motla Chernobyl, all the dynasties of Chernobyl, the Twerskis. The Heilige Chernobyl, the Maggid, Reb Nachum Chernobyl has a sefer called Moyer Einayim. In Parshas, not in Parsha, it's on Chumash, but there's a section, Moyer Einayim Yisamach Leiv, where he has Biyurim on Mesechtes of Gemara. So Mesechta Yuma Daf Lamed Hey, Amid Beis, the Moyer Einayim has a whole shtickle. And he says there a taich, miyusad on the Baal Shem Tov. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Kapitel Samach Tes, Va'ehi lahem k'mashal. I was for them like a mashal. So the pashtus, like a joke, like a mashal, like a cute anecdote. That's what I am. I'm an anecdote, right? The kid once told me in Cheder, whenever the Rebbe, the Melamed, wanted to speak about the Maharal's Goylem, Yosef Goylem, so he pointed, he says, here's a Goylem, and he's even bigger than Yosef Goylem, because Yosef Goylem couldn't speak, and my Goylem speaks. I was like a story, I was a joke. Taiches the Heilige Reb Nachum Chernobyl, he says, all love in the world is a mashal. It's a metaphor. And it's a metaphor with the purpose to get to the nimshal, to get to the message. You don't give a metaphor to stay by the metaphor. The mashal is supposed to illustrate and help you understand the nimshal, which is more abstract. So all Ava in the world is a mashal for a nimshal. So when David loves Bathsheba, for him it's a mashal for a nimshal, because the Gemara says, Sechta Shabbos, Daf Nun Vav, Kala Oimer David Chata Eine Elatoya. The Gemara says that Bathsheba was royal of David Misheshis and Mebereshis. She was a shidduch, right? She was really a shidduch. So in the Ava to Bathsheba wasn't stam an animalistic, superficial love. There was a profound spiritual depth, even though there were components of it that relative to David were problematic. But they thought that my whole life I'm obsessed with the mashal. I don't see the nimshal. They don't realize that for me the mashal is a mashal for the nimshal. So in the nimshal of Ava is the relationship between a Jew and God. Kamayim apanul apanim ken lev adam ala adam is not only the image I reflect is what comes back to me. Da mala maila mimach. So the Balatanya and the Maggid Taich, what's a da mala maila mimach? Not only know what is above you. Da mala maila mimach. Whatever is above is mimach, comes from you. Don't be k'tanei amana. Whatever is above comes from you. Your energy, your emotions, your attitude, your perspective, your projections make a dent in reality. But Kamayim Panam Panam Kein Lev Adam Al Adam means that a person is capable of experiencing complete dveikus, complete intimacy. Where me and the water, where me and my beloved completely become one. What's necessary is I have to be able to bend down. I have to be able to deflate. I have to be able to believe in the relationship so much that I'm not afraid of being hurt by bending down. Because we often have to protect ourselves. So we have to be erect. So here's a Torah, which helps us internalize this. And here you see the sweetness of a piece of Gemara, which superficially you don't get. You may miss. The Gemara in Masechta Shabbos, Taf Lamed Aleph. The Gemara speaks there about the Shita of Rabbi YY. Soiser, if a person is soiser on Shabbos, a person demolishes on Shabbos, Almanas livnois, if you're just demolishing, you're not liable min ha-Torah. You don't have to bring a carbon chatos. You're not liable min ha-Torah because you demolish. If it's soiser almanas livnois, if I'm demolishing in order to rebuild, then you're chayiv min ha-Torah. Why? Because when you're demolishing in order to build, essentially what are you doing? It's the beginning of construction. If I want to expand the house, I have to take down the wall. Am I taking down a wall or am I doing construction? I'm not destroying a house, I'm building a house. It's not sois. So the Gemara brings the shit of Rabbi YY. When is sois almanas livnus chayav? If it's b'mkaimai. If I'm destroying the house, I'm taking out a brick, for example. I'm demolishing a wall to rebuild right here. But what if I'm going to take the brick and go build myself a house? Yeah. In another place, down the block or in another neighborhood, then I'm not chayiv min ha-Torah. Why? You understand why, right? The Havana we understand. Because here I'm demolishing, I'm not building. Somewhere else I'm going to build. So the Gemara asks a gewaldige kash. What's the kash? The malachas of Shabbos we learn from what? From the Mishkan. Building of the Mishkan. Did they demolish the Mishkan? Of course. They always had to decompose the Mishkan. When they were sois of the Mishkan, was it almanas livnois b'mkaima or shalai b'mkaima? They're not going to put it up, but they're traveling. So they're going to put it up somewhere else. So the malacha soiser of the Mishkan is almanas livnois shalai b'mkaima. Elsewhere. Yeah.
There was the same place.
Yeah. For Shivas Yimei Miluyim. Right. But the other times, there was sois almanas livnois. So l'chayre, if the malachas of Shabbos we learn from malachas HaMishkan, the din should have been that soiser al menas liv stam soiser destruction. That you're not chayiv min ha-Torah. Why? It doesn't exist in the Mishkan. They never demolished the Mishkan just to demolish it. It was always to carry it and reconstruct it. But it's not been kaima. Question. So what does the Gemara answer? Since the pasuk says in Parshas Baloisach, Al pi Hashem yisu, v'al pi Hashem yachanu, kim koimoi domi. Since they were traveling according to the direct guidance of the Rebbeinu Shalom, he told them when to move, and he told them when to rest. It's kim koimoi. It's as though they're demolishing it to put it up again in the very same place. Why? Because they're traveling al pi Hashem yisu, al pi Hashem yach. What's the pshat in the Gemara? Why? Just because the GPS is guiding you. What do I mean by GPS? God's positioning system. So just because you have God's positioning system telling you, make a right, make a left, go 1.3 miles and make a right, stay right. So it's Kaimai. It's not Kaimai. I'm taking down the Mishkan, and Hashem is telling me, time to move on. We're going to go somewhere else. So what's Kim Chayma? Al-Pi Pshat, technical Pshat, you could say, you don't know where God is telling you to go. Right? You don't know. It's not like I'm taking this brick and I'm moving away to another city. You don't know. Maybe God is going to tell you to come around to the same place. Right? You don't know. It's al pi Hashem. You're blind. You're just following directions. So therefore, as far as you're concerned, you're not demolishing it to put it elsewhere. You're demolishing it, and you don't know where you're going to put it up. Wherever Hashem wants. But it's shver. It's shver. Because usually, I don't think ever Hashem just told them to come back to the same place. Because the point is to move on to Eretz Yisrael. It takes 40 years, but we're traveling somewhere. We're not just going in a circle. We're going the long way, true, but we're going on a destiny. There's a destination. It's leading. Eila Masa B'nai Yisrael, right? And you have them in 42 encampments. Vayisu, vayachnu, vayisu, vayachnu, vayisu, vayachnu. So what's Pshat? What the Gemara means, it says in Svarim, is something much deeper. And let's give a mashal. I don't know how many of you travel, or travel often, but those who travel know exactly what I'm going to describe, and if not, you'll understand it. Say you're a traveler for leisure, for business, for research, for curiosity, for spiritual reasons. You're a traveler. You're a journey, you're a sojourner, you're a traveler. You don't sit in one place. They say there was a Psayid, a Ger Chassid, who traveled a lot. And there started to be rumors about him. You know, when he leaves, they said the Ger Rebbe told him, the Beis Yisrael, what's going on? So he says, Baruch Hashem, I was zoichet to what the Gemara says, Ashrei Adam, fortunate is the man that they suspect him and he's innocent. I was zoichet that this should be fulfilled by me. So he said, best as I'm Mekayim, Ashrei Yoshvei Veisecha. In your case, you should better stay home. Ashrei Yoshvei Veisecha. But there are travelers. So let's say I travel from New York to Miami, from Miami to Chicago, from Chicago to Detroit, from Detroit to Los Angeles. From Los Angeles, I travel to Melbourne, from Melbourne to Sydney, from Sydney to Perth, from Perth to New Zealand. From there, I travel to Johannesburg, travel to Europe, I travel to Eretz Yisrael, come back finally to New York, East 23rd Street. Somebody says to me, where were you all this time? I open my passport. Take a look. Stamp from this country, a stamp from this country, a stamp from this country. Here I have pictures from here and videos from here and images from here and postcards from here and experiences from here and tour guides that took me here and there and there. That's all from your perspective. What happens if you're traveling with your wife, soll sie sein gesund, and an infant? Mamish, an infant. A tinoik shelo higia leklal das. Completely unaware of what's going on, an infant. And your wife courageously takes your little boychik, your little baby boy, little baby girl on the journey. And went all over these places. And now turn to the little child. And if you can speak to this little child, read his or her brain, and ask the child, Ingale, Meidale, tell me, where were you all this time? Where did you go to? Child doesn't tell you. Sydney, Melbourne, Los Angeles, Honolulu, Moscow, Jerusalem, Johannesburg, Chicago. Where was the child? I was in my mother's arms. In Sydney, I was in my mother's arms. In Moscow, I was in my mother's arms. In Los Angeles, I was in my mother's arms. And in Miami, I was in my mother's arms. I was in my mother's arms. Or in other words, I was always in the same place. This is what the Gemara is saying. Since al pi Hashem yisu, al pi Hashem yachanu, they weren't demolishing the Mishkan, al manas, to put it up in a new place. For them, they weren't going to a new makom. Why? The pasuk says in Tehillim, "Kegomol alei imai." They were like children, like infants in the arms of a loving mother. You could take me halfway around the world and back. You could take me around half the globe and back. From my perspective, I'm in the same place. Secure, confident, embraced by the unconditional, loving warmth of a mama, of a mother. V'yeminoi techapkeni. I didn't relocate anywhere. I didn't go anywhere. So now when the Jews demolished the Mishkan to travel, was it Seisir Amanas Livnis Bim Kaimah or Shalai Bim Kaimah? The Pashtus, Shalai Bim Kaimah, they're going somewhere else. Zag the Gemara, no. Kivan Dal Pi Hashem Yisroel Pi Hashem Yachanu. Wasn't just a GPS. They were guided every step of the way. They were being held. They were being carried. They were being transported. They were being moved by God. It's all the same place. It's in the arms of God. Up there, down there, right, left, mizrach, ma'arif. It's in the arms of my mother, in the arms of the Shekhinah. In many ways, this is what Chassidus came to share with a Jew. This conviction, this faith, emunah, and most importantly, this feeling and this trust. Life, we all know, is a roller coaster. Not your life. Everybody else's life. Depends. Life. It's unpredictable. And we fear. We all have fear. What do we fear? Some people are afraid of death. Some people are afraid of other people. And some people are afraid of themselves, their own brain. And some people are afraid of everything. And of their wives too. Or of their husbands. Some people are afraid of outside, and some people are afraid of inside. I'm afraid of myself. I'm afraid that I don't have it. I'm weak. Or I'm afraid of circumstance. I'm afraid of people. I'm afraid of the future. I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I'm afraid of my situation. Life is unpredictable. We all know that. That's one perspective. And to navigate that takes skill, it takes courage, and it takes a lot of work. Siddhis came to give the Jew the feeling that Al Pi Hashem Yisroel, Al Pi Hashem Yachnu Kimekoymoidam. Of course you go up and you go down. Of course one day you're in Mizrach and one day you're in Ma'arif. Of course one day you're in the south and the other day you're in the north. One day you look outside the window and the sun is shining, Amachaya, and one day you look out the window and you don't see the sun, all you see are dark clouds. And you have to believe that above the clouds, the sun is still shining, which is true. Sometimes you get a telephone call and you're like, Baruch Shechiyanu v'kimanu v'gyanu l'zman, thank you. And sometimes you get a telephone call that elicits a very different response. Sometimes you feel on top of the world, sometimes you feel on bottom of the world, sometimes you feel empowered, and sometimes you feel weak, hopeless. Came Chassidus and emphasized and revealed that the essence of Yiddishkeit is Al Pi Hashem Yisroel, Al Pi Hashem Yachnu. That in every situation, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you're in the arms of the Ribbono Shel Olam, who with TLC is holding on to you. And even when you're scaling a mountain or descending into the abyss, Gam ki elech begeitz almavis lo yirah ki ato imad. It's kimekoymoidami. There's a stability there. There's a confidence there. There's a wholesomeness there. There's a simcha sachayim. I'm in the same place. Of course, I'm not geographically or psychologically in the same place, but I'm still in the same place. I have my footing, I have my grounding. Because Al Pi Hashem Yisroel, Al Pi Hashem Yachnu. He's with you, He's in you, He loves you, He cares for you. And even the challenges is the B'china of Kel Mekamos Haifiyah. He never wants your bad, only your good. The concept of punishment and revenge in Judaism when it's translated as punishment and revenge, can be deeply misunderstood. It's not about punishment and revenge as we understand it in English. It's always about, what is it about? Kaifiyah. Very good. Okay. If you just got that out of tonight, is good. But can you translate that into English? You know, Wednesday we start the Hachanas for Shabbos, right? The Gemara says till Tuesday is Basar Shabbata, Psachim. And from Wednesday is Kamer Shabbata. So how do you start preparing for Shabbos? Kel Nekamas Hashem, Kel Nekamas Efiyah. That's how you start preparing for Shabbos. And then at the end we say L'chun Iranan al Hashem, Nariya L'tzuyishin. How could it be L'chun Iranan? It doesn't fit. First you tell me he's a God of revenge, right? Which is essentially a paradox a lot of people have. Imagine I tell you, you know your father? He's a dad of revenge. And if you didn't hear it the first time, I'll repeat it again. Your dad is a dad of revenge. Don't slash his tires. Don't break his windows. And don't get on his bad side. Because he's a dad of revenge. And by the way, L'chu, come. Let's dance towards your father. Let's sing his praises. Let's welcome his face with gratitude. You know why? Because he's the greatest of the great. This is what makes Jews meshigeh. It drives them insane. Tell me God is a God of revenge. Fine, I got it. I'll stay away from him. I'll just do what he wants and stay away. I'll check off the contract. But now you tell me, go dance and celebrate. This is, in the heart of orthodoxy, this is a very serious issue, I'm telling you, psychologically. Because it creates a psychological unspoken paradox, what we call dissonance, that's not often addressed. And we desperately need Torah Baal Shem Tov for this. The Haifiyah. So it's good, Haifiyah. If you could get that Haifiyah, then it's L'chun Iranan. And that's the Al Pi Hashem Yisroel, Al Pi Hashem Yachnu. Al Pi Hashem Yisroel, Al Pi Hashem Yachnu is the beginning what it says by Sarah. Kulon Shavim L'Toiva, right? Rashi says. 127 years were all identical in goodness. Really? Sarah's life was Shavim. For 90 years she was craving a child. After this, she's blessed. How can you say it's Shavim? She was abducted and kidnapped by Paro. For years she suffered poverty. She left her whole household and went to wander with her husband. And finally she learns that her son was slaughtered or is about to be slaughtered. That's called Kulon Shavim L'Taiva. But Sarah had the heritage of Al Pi Hashem Yisroel, Al Pi Hashem Yachnu. Shavim doesn't mean uniform. It doesn't mean every day looks just like yesterday and tomorrow looks just like today. No way. When you're 10, you're not 20. What you know when you're 20 is not what you know when you're 40. When you know when you're 40 is not what you know when you're 60. I once heard from a Yid, an Eltire, smart, experienced Jew. He said there's a 20-year-old, a 40-year-old, and a 60-year-old. A 20-year-old is self-conscious. You walk around thinking, how do I make sure to fit in here, to fit in there? I want to look a certain way so people will experience me this way and that way. When you're 40, you wake up one morning, and you say, you know what? I couldn't care less what you think of me. I'm going to dress the way I want. I'm going to do what I want. And if you don't like it, you could jump off the Azazel mountain today. And when you're 60, you realize nobody was ever looking at you. Now, since I'm not 60 years old, so I'm not holding that stage. But those here who are Bnei Shishim, they could maybe testify to that phenomenon. Although you all look very young in spirit at least, and physically. So life is not Shaveh. When is life Shaveh? Can you compare being a child to being a teenager? Can you compare being a bacher to being a younger man? Can you compare not having children to having little children? Can you compare having little children to having teenagers? It's like ganze Welt, and then marrying them off, and then dealing with that issue, and then right? And then there's this stage where you have to confront realities that you didn't even imagine in your youth that they even existed. And today I should say that some kids at the age of 16 and 17 already have the experiences which used to be what 90-year-olds had to wait for to experience. Some people are experiencing already at 16 and 17. They saw it all. They saw life, death, and everything in between, unfortunately. So what's the shavim? The shavim is l'toiva. L'toiva means it's not the same. But there's the confidence and empowerment and trust that comes from the fact that you're a child in God's arms. And what that means is that any experience you're encountering, Hashem is with you and giving you the power to bring light into that place. To bring light and holiness into that space of darkness. What that space is, who knows? And we hope and pray out of the that the spaces where one should bring in light should already be places of light, and a person should just increase light. But whatever the situation of a person's life is, the Yisroel is, Al pi Hashem Yisro, Al pi Hashem Yachanu, Kimekoimoi Dami. You don't leave your place. And that's the Kamayim Haponim Leponim Kein Leva Adam Al Adam. That there's a point you have to be able to bend down and go to the water and allow yourself to be one with your source. Allow yourself to become one where your face merges with the source. Allow yourself to become a small child, to bend down like a child who is not afraid to forfeit his ego or her ego, and allow yourself to be transported. In many ways, it takes a lot of discipline, but in many ways, it makes life sweet. It makes life easy, because once you learn to live from that perspective, then you're a free person. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi has a poem, and not Rabbi Shloime ibn Gabirel was one of the greatest poets of the Middle Ages from Spain. And he has a beautiful poem. And in one of his poems he writes, I run away from God to God. I run from you. Where do I run to? I run to you. It's like when a mother, gives a little frask to her child, right? So the child runs away, starts screaming, says, Mommy, I hate you, and then comes back to Mommy to comfort him, right? Runs from his mother to his mother. So in life, there is that intense relationship. But one has to know that it's kimekoimai dami. And this is what the Baal Shem Tov, the Alter Rebbe, their Talmidim, tried constantly to give people through Chassidus that intimate experience of intimacy with Hashem, which allows for a pada b'shalom nafshi, a menucha and a simcha to navigate our world. L'chaim, 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 l'chaim. Not as expressive as you, as we know. He processes it, and after 2.5 weeks, we'll get a text. In Khalifa Islam ya Elohim Sholach Yodov Ishloim Avchileh soy Ivu krov liboy Rakud volav mishemen Heima veheima Sikhos Hashlech Halashi Eftabor Vani Eftach bach, eftach bach, vani 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 eftach bach, eftach. Yom Tov, Yom Tov, Yom Tov.